This is the SAU Report, a program featuring interviews with the faculty, staff, students, and alumni of Southern Arkansas University in Magnolia.
Welcome to this edition of the SAU Report. I'm Amanda Black.
And I'm Kerry Bubien.
With us today as a special guest, Arkansas's Commissioner of State Lands, Charlie Daniels. Daniels began his public service as a school board member in Parker's Chapel, located in Union County, but began his political career when he was appointed by then-Governor David Pryor to be the director of the Arkansas Department of Labor. He was then appointed by Governor Bill Clinton and went on to become the Governmental Affairs Director for the Arkansas Electric Cooperatives. He became a candidate for the Land Commissioner's post, a post he was elected to by Arkansas's voting public in 1984, 86, 90, and 94. Welcome, Mr. Daniels.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here at SAU campus.
We're glad to have you here. As one of 7 popularly elected constitutional officers, what are your primary duties?
Well, the primary role of the Commissioner of State Lands today is the disposition of tax delinquent properties throughout the state of Arkansas.
Okay. Well, by what means do you collect those taxes?
Well, let me briefly say how the law works and how it comes about and how it comes to our office. If you own property in the state of Arkansas, you have to pay property taxes. And those taxes are due and payable by October the 10th of each year. And if you don't pay them by October the 10th on the 11th, then they're delinquent. So it remains at the county. Those parcels remain at the county for a period of 1 year. And then if they're still not redeemed, then they're certified to the Commissioner of State Lands office. And once they're certified there, then we send out a letter to the individual who owns the property indicating that they have 2 more years in which they can pay those taxes, or else it will be offered at a public auction.
Okay.
Does the tax money go into the state treasury?
Yes, that hasn't always been so. When I was campaigning in 1984, as I would travel around the courthouses, I would hear comments like, we don't like to send these parcels of land down to Little Rock because we don't get anything back. So we passed legislation in 1985 that allows us to send all the tax dollars and all of the interest that we collect back to the county where the property is located.
Could you walk us through the time frame surrounding property taxes? I mean, the initial time that it's at the county level and then how it goes through the process of coming to the state?
Yes. I indicated that your taxes are due and payable October the 10th or else they're delinquent. Actually, in 1998, which we're in today, of course, you'll be paying taxes for 1997. So you've got 1 year from the delinquent date of October the 11th to pay the taxes at the county. No one else can come in and pay your taxes and claim your property. Now that used to happen occasionally before, but not anymore. So 1 year at the county level, certified at the Commissioner of State Lands office. We enter them in our computer there, and they've got 2 years to pay the taxes there. And if not, they're offered at a public sale where anyone can come in. There's no charge to register to bid on that property.
So after 2 years, taxes remain unpaid. What then happens?
Well, let me stress again that we have that public sale, and if it's sold, the owner of record still has 30 days to which to come in our office and pay those taxes. So after that point, if it's still on our books and has not sold, there's such a thing we call a negotiated sale. Basically, for the first year after the sale, we will accept the minimum bid plus taxes. And then 1 year after that, we can adjust downward from there.
Okay. Has the state always conducted land sales?
No, this legislation passed in 1983, Act 626, that changed the way the disposition of tax delinquent properties quite drastically. Before that, each of the 75 counties, when your taxes would go delinquent, they would be offered for sale on the courthouse steps. And then whoever bought that property, started paying the taxes, they would receive a clerk's deed. What did not sell was certified to the Commissioner of State Lands office. But in 1983, Act 626 said that no longer will they be held at the courthouse. All of them will be certified to the Commissioner of State Lands office, as I've described in the history, and we go from there.
How much of the money that your office collects comes from the land sale?
Well, it has changed since we started our first sales in 1987. I think the first year we had conducted sales, it was around 66% was derived from the sales of the property. But today it's less than 14% of the dollars we collect are coming actually from sales. And so our goal, our thrust, is to notify individuals, make sure they're aware their property taxes are delinquent, and give them every opportunity to come in and pay their taxes. We would consider ourselves 100% successful if we never sold a parcel of land.
Well, you first took office in 1985, and only 2 years before that, the Arkansas legislature had passed a law that called for the state to conduct the sales and redemption of delinquent parcels of land. Right. Had that law had not been implemented when you came into office in '85, so how did you go about the task of implementing that legislation, and where did you look to for guidance or an example, perhaps?
Well, over half of my staff was new when I took office in January '85. So the first thing that we did, well, actually we started this right before I took office in January, but we read the law, number one, and discovered what we were supposed to be doing. So we checked around, and Michigan was the closest state we could find that, I mean, it had the closest law as to ours. So we traveled there, visited with them. Matter of fact, we just used verbatim some of their forms and their procedures. We went on their tax sales with them. So they were very instrumental in helping us develop the program and the plans that we have today.
Where was the first land sale, and how did that sale go?
Well, the first land sale was over in Union County, and as been indicated, that's my home county, and so we held that sale there. One of the reasons was because I knew if I messed up real bad that they'd forgive me.
What do you see as some of the benefits to the state conducting the sales of tax forfeited land rather than the individual county-by-county basis?
Well, I think it's more uniform, number one. And you have a lot of people that own property in more than one county. At one time, each of the 75 counties had, the different procedures, perhaps. So, number one, it's standardized, and everyone knows what the procedures are. We conduct the sales in the county where the parcel of land is located.
Are property taxes relatively high compared to other states?
No, Arkansas is either at the bottom or close to the bottom. I think it's probably second from the bottom in the property taxes in the state of Arkansas.
To date, how much money has your office collected and returned to Arkansas' 75 counties?
Well, we all total, it's been around $55 million. Our first year, I was in office in '85, I think it was something like $450,000, and the next year was around $800,000 and $1.2 million or so, and it kept going up until last year we collected $8.5 million.
My goodness. Well, today we're here on the SAU Magnolia campus, so let's talk about how much has been collected and returned to Columbia County.
Well, in Columbia County, it's around $72,000 that we've sent back to this county, and I'd say less than 5,000 or 6,000 of that came from sales.
Let's go back for a moment and discuss the history of the office. When was the office created, and what were the roles of the office at its inception?
Well, it's changed drastically in the late around 1864, right after the war. During that period of time, the main role was to entice immigrants to come to the state of Arkansas. It's very interesting that one of my first things I discovered in the office was an old report, an actual handwritten report, 1868, and it was original replies to a questionnaire that was sent out by Commissioner Lewis at that time. And it asked questions like, how far are you from the nearest waterways, and the types of trees, the types of game, wildlife, the sickness and illnesses throughout the county, the number of churches, the number of schools. So that was a primary role at that point. And later on, at one point, it was the Commissioner of State Lands and Highways until around 1929. Then it changed and remained about the same until actually 1983 was the major change. And that's when Act 626 passed. And we've had some legislation almost each session, legislative session. We've had some legislation to change some of the things we're doing. Not to make it any more stringent, but just to streamline the procedures. And everything that we do is geared towards making sure an individual receives proper notification that their taxes are delinquent.
We've just discussed at some length one of the primary duties of your office, reclaiming delinquent tax dollars and returning those idle properties back to the revenue-generating tax rolls. Now, you mentioned through legislation that you authored in 1985 that every tax dollar and interest money that's collected goes right back to the county just as if it had been collected there.
Yes.
Once it's back at the county, how's that money distributed?
Well, it's distributed just as if it had been collected at the county. And as you know, that about 80% of the property tax dollars go to help fund our schools. And I feel strongly about education. As you indicated, I served on the school board for a while, so I've always had a great concern for education in the state of Arkansas. And these dollars will go right back to the school district where the parcel of land is located.
Well, collection of tax dollars is surely time-consuming, but in fact there are many other programs that your office administers, such as the housing of many historic documents. Could you tell us a little bit about what those documents are and why the public might be interested in those?
Well, there's a lot of history in the Commissioner of State Lands office. We have the only handwritten survey notes that was done in the state of Arkansas back when they were doing the Louisiana Purchase, survey of the Louisiana Purchase. And those are available for anyone to come in and look at. Also, we work with the Bureau of Land Management, and we have all of the original patents for the state of Arkansas. That's the deeds from the federal government to an individual in the state of Arkansas. We have those on CD-ROM. And we're in the process today of trying to put all of our documents on CD-ROM to make those available throughout the state, make them available at the county where you won't have to come to Little Rock to view those.
Okay.
Collection of tax dollars is surely time-consuming, but in fact, that is not the only program your office administers. Tell us about the historic documents housed in your office.
Well, let me go a little further than that and talk about some of the other programs that we do, such as we passed legislation that would allow us to take these delinquent properties that did not sell,
Right.
and they're still on our books for a long period of time, and they were really a blight in the urban area. So what we do with those, we pass legislation that will allow us to donate those to a qualifying association such as Habitat for Humanity. One of the first ones that we did was up in Fort Smith, Arkansas. And it was such a pleasure to go up there and to christen this new home. And I'll tell you just briefly about what happened. There was this lady that was working at the school district there, and she had 3 or 4 children plus her mother. And so she had a job, but she couldn't afford a home, you know, and pay the full amount. So with Habitat for Humanity coming in, we donated the property, all the people in the community. I mean, there were lawyers and there were people from the county, and one day it was just nothing but females working on it, you know, and it was a great event. And so today, this lady is living in this house, she's paying a payment, and she's paying taxes on this property.
Tell us a little bit about the Donated Lands Program and how that also can benefit a community, and maybe how people in maybe Columbia County can get involved and pursue either the Urban Homestead Act or the Donated Lands Program through your office.
Well, again, that came about with a number of cities or public entities that were interested in some delinquent properties. And again, it's property that's been there on the books for a long period of time, and no one's going to buy it. No one will pay that amount of money. So we passed, again, legislation, I think in 1986, that allowed us to donate to any city or county or anyone for public use. One of the first was over at Donaldson, out from Malvern, and it was a total community effort there as well. It was a deserted corner lot, had an old house on it, grown up in vines, and so Walmart contributed some playground equipment, the ARCLA donated some pipe, and the Army Reserve came in one weekend and cleaned it off, and it's just a beautiful park today.
So people interested in pursuing these programs, do they just need to call your office?
Yes. Yeah, they can call our office anytime. We're open from 8 to 5 o'clock, as you know, and 324-9222.
Okay. Well, in addition to these varied tasks, your office also oversees the extraction of oil and gas and minerals on state-owned lands. And could you tell us a little bit about what has taken place since your office began overseeing this program?
Yes, I think it's probably been 4 or 5 years since that particular function was transferred from the Department of Finance Administration. And so we're responsible for all the leasing on any state-owned properties in the state of Arkansas. That includes the navigable rivers and streams, as well as any properties that SAU may own, which, as a matter of fact, we've increased the collection from $300,000 the first year to over $1 million last year. And out of that $1 million, I believe it was around $35,000 that came back to SAU from them. So the agency who owns the property gets those dollars that we collect for them. We don't keep anything out of it.
What improvements do you believe have been made?
Well, a number of things have happened, I think, to improve that office. Number one, we try to let people know what we do. Everywhere I go, the first question usually asked of me is, what's the land commissioner do? Well, maybe that's the second question. The first one is, do you have a band? And the answer, of course, is no. I'm not different from Charlie Daniels. But so we try to, you know, it's very important that people understand what we do. It's very important that people understand the property tax system. And there are a lot of people, you know, who live out of state that own property here, and it's very difficult, you know, to get word to them. We go the extra mile. If an address is wrong and the certified letter comes back, then we've got a phone list. We'll look up these names, and we'll send our investigators out in the county to actually go out and look at the properties and to contact the county officials and see if there's been a change of address or change in title.
Well, going back to the two programs that your office created, the Urban Homestead Act and the Donated Lands Program, have there been a number of parcels donated throughout the state to nonprofit groups and community municipalities?
I think there's probably been, I'd say, in excess of 100 all told since we started. And we've just had another one. I hate to just keep talking about all these great things that we're doing, but they are great. And another Habitat for Humanity project in Little Rock. And it was a similar story to the one I told a while ago, and it's just like everybody, my staff has volunteered to go out and work on these. And it's just a good feeling to know that you've taken this blighted property that would never be sold, never be, you know, amount to anything, and turned into something like this. It's really nice.
Okay.
We must mention that you have ties to South Arkansas. Tell us about your years in Union County.
Well, of course, I was born and raised there. Grew up south of El Dorado and ran for the school board, as indicated. In 1975, David Pryor called me and wanted to know if I would serve as the director of the State Department of Labor. So that's when I left El Dorado. But my family still lives there. And as a matter of fact, I had some ties here in Columbia County, a few distant cousins.
What are some things that you feel are important? We've discussed the primary roles, some of the programs that your office oversees. What do you think the main thing to drive home to the people of Arkansas that your office is doing for them?
Well,
what service?
Other than some of the peripheral things that we do, the genealogical type functions that we do, I'd say the collection of the tax dollars and the return of those tax dollars back to those counties. And I can't stress enough that we've gone from, you know, $400,000 or $500,000 to $8 million, and that's not a small amount of change for the schools. The schools need those changes. We're looking now at developing a curriculum that would help a program to put in the school system to help people understand how to read a description. A lot of folks don't understand that, and I think it'll be a very worthwhile project.
The legal descriptions.
Yeah. And so we're working with some educators and other people right now to try to develop something that would help people understand the whole project.
Now, I understand through some reading that your office did receive, and things you've commented about, one of the highest yearly totals ever collected, and that I believe the month of October, you received a record amount for any month since you've been in office in the State Land Office collections. How many more certifications did your office receive statewide, and what is the average number of certifications throughout the state of tax delinquent parcels?
Our average had been around 10,000 parcels a year. It had been as much as 12 at one time. But legislation passed, actually Act 660 of 1995, and that changed. A while ago I indicated that the county holds the property there for 1 year. Prior to the passage of Act 660, it was at the county level for 2 years, and then 2 years at the State Land Office. So that time frame was short, and one of the reasons it was shortened was because the sooner we get the parcels, the sooner we get a certified letter out and we start collecting those dollars. So to answer your question, last year we had around 23 or 24,000 parcels certified to our office. So we processed a lot of parcels. But, you know, it was like 10,000 would be our normal amount that we'd receive in a year. So the ones that had only been in the county for 12 months versus 2 years, it was probably around a third more in those counties.
Well, your office has received a considerable amount of press this past year on the Magic Springs property in Hot Springs, Arkansas, the amusement park that was built, I believe, in the late 70s. Could you explain a little bit about the process and how that goes back to what happens when property is offered up for sale, and a little bit about the Magic Springs history?
Yeah, of course, we had a lot of inquiries about it, and the people in Hot Springs certainly wanted to keep that place open, and we had worked with the owners to try to work with them on the taxes and what have you, but it reached a point where whenever the city of Hot Springs cut their water off, they had to shut down, so, and I understand that. And so it was very difficult to get someone to come in and pay that amount of dollars that we were asking, as well as all of the liens. There were probably 40-something liens on that property, so no one wanted to do that. Well, finally, after 3 or 4 years, I'm not real sure of the time frame now, but we had an offer on it that someone would come in and they were going to pay all the taxes plus some dollars. And we accepted that offer. And as indicated before, the owner of record has 30 days from that sale that he could come in, or he or she could come in. Well, that's true of any lien holder, anyone that has an interest in that property. They don't change the name of the title, but so in this particular case, there was a Belgian firm that had a lien on the property. They came in within a 30-day time period, and they paid the taxes and redeemed the property. Now, it stayed in NIGM Corporation's name.
So that blocked the sale.
That blocked the sale. We gave the person their money back that had put the money up. And so at the present time, then, this person is trying to foreclose on the owner, so the part would be his.
Now, at the land sale, when people go to bid at the public auctions and say they do purchase some property, and then within that 30-day time period, the original owner or any lien holder comes back in and pays those back taxes, whoever purchased the property, are they fully refunded?
They get everything that they paid us without any interest. And that's true of any sale that is canceled. There are a number of sales that take place that may be canceled 6 months down the road, and for a number of reasons, and most of them you'd end up having to go to court to get that changed. But in any event, anytime there's a sale canceled, we refund all the dollars paid to us from that individual without any interest.
Or are there any properties right now that would be high profile on the tax books? I remember Dog Patch was shortly after Magic Springs, but...
Well, I can't think of any offhand right now. We had the Union Station in Little Rock for a number of years, and it had reached a point to where the roof was collapsing on it, and yet the taxes were like $3 million, and nobody would pay $3 million, so we worked with the county, and they were able to lower some of the taxes because it wasn't worth what it was when it went delinquent. You know, it goes delinquent, and our minimum bid is the assessed value of the property, which is 20% of the appraised value. So when your taxes are based upon that, and it's easy to see that after 4 or 5 or 6 years of back taxes adding up, then you end up with a large amount of money that's more dollars on taxes than the property's worth.
So if someone has delinquent property in Columbia County or another county in the state of Arkansas, and the property value has gone down since the time that it was originally certified to your office, those individuals can sometimes maybe work with the county to get that, say the house is burned, perhaps.
Yeah, in a situation where there's been a drastic change, and that would be a good example, that there was a house burned, and then they would need to work with their local county officials on that. We don't change and we don't set any taxes at all. Any change that is made to any certifications to our office has to be done by the county. They send us a correction certificate, and then we'll make the change there on our books.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you have any publications that would be available to residents of Arkansas or perhaps throughout the United States?
Well, we do. As I indicated, we try to make sure that the public is informed about what we do. We publish a quarterly catalog that lists all of the properties that are coming up for sale within that quarter, and it lists the amount of dollars you'll have to pay as far as the minimum bid is concerned, the assessed value plus the taxes, penalties, and interest. And that's free of charge, and we probably have 35,000 people on that mailing list. We send them automatically to, I think, each of the school districts. We send them out to all the financial institutions to make sure that they look at them, and in case they've got a lien on that property, they'll recognize that. And we do a couple of other brochures. One of them describes all the functions that we do in the state land office, and the other one goes into great detail as to what we do as far as how to buy tax delinquent properties.
So folks interested, again, would just need to call the state land office, and I believe we'll try to show that number or remind people that it is 501-324-9222, and they can request those catalogs or be added to the mailing list.
We would be glad to have them call.
Okay. And property taxes in Arkansas due and payable by
October the 10th.
October the
of each year.
10th.
Don't forget it.
Come rain or shine,
Come
October the
rain or
10th.
shine.
Okay. I certainly have enjoyed our wrap-up here with Arkansas Land Commissioner Charlie Daniels. My name is Amanda Black.
And I'm Kerry Bubien.
Thank you for joining us for this segment of the SAU Report.
The SAU Report is a production of broadcast journalism students in the Department of Theater and Mass Communication at Southern Arkansas University in Magnolia.